Hey guys, welcome back to some more Theotech Podcast. We talked a little bit about Pokemon Go in our previous episode. Chris, you want to talk a little bit about AR and how it relates to the gospel, and also how Theotech might be able to incorporate some of that?
We were talking about Pokemon Go
Yes.
and how this augmented reality game is such a big hit, not only in its gameplay, but in how it's bringing people together and calling them out of their isolation just because they're going out and about their cities and they're meeting other players and they're fighting over gyms and trying to catch Pokemon, helping each other out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been incredible how it's had that impact and influence. And I think that as Christians, of course, we're thinking about like, well, that's oftentimes what people in churches and want to do. Like they want to bring people together in a community, and this game has been able to do that on a small scale, like a small level of community, but on a wide scale. And so I don't have the answers, but I was just thinking through like, what would it look like to incorporate alternate or augmented reality in a gospel-oriented way, right? And some of the ideas that came to mind, I'm not sure. There's two things that just kind of come to the top of my mind. One is, of course, the geocaching element, and the other one is the gym battling element or whatever like that. And so for the geocaching element, we already have an app called Ceaseless that helps people pray for others, right?
Yeah.
But it's obviously not geographically oriented. It's just like praying for your contacts.
Yeah.
And in the age of the internet, our contacts can be all over the place. But we could incorporate potentially a geographical element to it, where it could be that you're praying for your city or different neighborhoods of your city, or like a prayer walk kind of thing. And so you could be geocaching in that sense, like as you're walking to different parts of your neighborhood, you're praying for it.
I prayed for these 3 blocks
Yeah,
today.
and the goal is you have a map of the world. The goal is to color everything blue. I'm Team Mystic on Pokemon Go. So, so that could be the goal, is like by praying or using an app and a map to incentivize prayer walking, people can see their progress in praying for their neighborhoods. And as over time, maybe those colors start to diminish, and so you want to keep things prayed for by going back again to that neighborhood and hitting all the geocaching points over there to show that you prayed for that people or neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's one possible way you can incorporate that mechanism, and it just kind of that map of the world idea and the kind of points of interest. They give you a clear goal, right, in your prayer walking, and the prayer still has to happen by you. The Holy Spirit has to be the one who actually helps you to pray and those things, but the tool itself is just helping you to be very clear about, okay, here's like my neighborhood, and here's the parts of the world that aren't covered in prayer. These are the places where there's no Christian even praying. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one way we could incorporate geocaching. And then when it comes to the gyms, because the gyms are another thing that really brings people together, is that they're competing, right?
Yeah.
Or they're like, I'm gonna go take this one down from yellow and make it blue or whatever, and people are gathering around like on their phones. I don't yet have a good corollary for gyms. But one thought I had was, in the Bible, we see that people oftentimes didn't only pray alone, but they prayed together. And I remember just reading the other day, the Apostle Paul, he would go out to the place where the women would pray, outside of the city. That's where he met, I think, Lydia, and she came to faith. And then I also know that many churches have prayer meetings and those kinds of things like that, but I think that technology lets us do it a little bit more spontaneously. Where what if I could just in my Ceaseless app have a beacon that just like, I want to pray, and anybody who's in my area can join me. I don't know if anyone would actually do that or not, but it's almost like that whole gym idea or something like that. It's that you can just place a beacon here and say like, guys, I'm going to be praying right now. If anybody wants to join me, and other people can get notified like with a notification on their phone if they're within like 100 meters away or something like that. And if they want to, they can just come to his location and join him and pray together. And that could be a very simple way to incorporate that technology to encourage more personal prayer for other people together in community, geographically, and to ensure, again, Ceaseless' mission, personal prayer for everyone on earth. It has in mind that idea of coverage, is that God actually does want us to pray for all people. And technology is here to help us to do that. And the community is helping us to do that, right? To encourage us to pray according to the Spirit, and to pray for one another in meaningful ways. So those are some of the ideas that came to the top of my mind as I thought about Pokemon Go as a just really powerful tool that's bringing people together, even though it's a game. And some of the ideas we might be able to pull into something like Ceaseless that could encourage these things with a more gospel-oriented focus in a non-cliche, forced way. It could be a very natural extension of praying for your neighborhood and praying with other people. And it's just using the technology for what it's good for. So those are some ideas, and I just wanted to throw it out there. Other technologists other people, believers, can be also think through the same things, of course. If you have ideas, you can post them in the comments.
Awesome.
Or if you like these ideas, tell me. We'll see if we can get it funded and get it built.
Yeah, give them the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Let us know. So, going back to my question that I had in the previous episode, if you haven't watched that, you can check the description below. Why can't real life be a game, and why can't it be fun? See, so it's like, you could almost see catching Pokemon as a chore, right? Because you're going out. I mean, chore has a negative connotation, but at the end, the two have the similar mechanics, right? You're going to do something to finish something, or accomplish something, or get something done, right? I don't see how catching a Pidgey is different than like, cleaning a section of your room, right? Or like washing one dish or something like that in the sink. And if there was some way to kind of like gamify real life, I think people would play and win, or at least try to win. There's no real way of winning in Pokemon, I would say, other than to battle and stuff like that. But I mean, this is one of the reasons why I don't play. Now, granted, I'm gonna give a little backstory. So my parents were very conservative. They're very, very strict. So I actually never got the opportunity to own a Game Boy, let alone play Pokemon on a regular basis. I did play, on my friend's Game Boy, or whenever we had friends over, that would be okay. But I never really got into the Game Boy, or to the gaming scene, at least in Pokemon. I never really owned that many cards, so I never really got into the card game scene. And then my parents never allowed us to watch TV or cartoons, so I never really watched the TV animation. So my attachment with Pokemon is very thin, just to start off, just to let everyone know. So this is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from someone who's very practical, who hasn't really played a lot. But why can't we just gamify life and make it fun and have people play life, and so people can win at life and be productive? Because the thing is, like, in the back of your mind, everybody knows that they should be productive, right? Like, maybe, okay, this is maybe just me, right? But it's like, I know there's certain things that I need to get done. I have a list of stuff at home. Some of them are really easy. Some of them are really short. Like, throwing stuff in the laundry, or throwing laundry in a washing machine. Like, that's a really quick and easy thing that needs to get done. Obviously, as you can tell by me just rambling right now, like, I am a guy who wants to be on top of things, and for the most part, I would say I am on top of things, right?
I feel like there's so many levels on which to answer your question.
Sure.
Just like too many levels that it can be overwhelming. Because many people have tried to gamify life.
Yeah.
I think one person that comes to mind is who wrote the 4-Hour Workweek?
Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but there are actually sites that do gamify, quote unquote boring chores. One of them that comes to mind is Habit RPG, which is a RPG game in which you set certain tasks that you have to do, like daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, and you get points if you finish those tasks and hit check. And if you don't, you lose HP every time.
Okay.
And so, the point is to have your character stay alive, and then the more chores, or the more, things that you accomplish, you get more items, right? So that you can upgrade and level. So it's very similar to Pokemon in the sense that you are leveling a character up, but you're doing it in a way that's correlating to real life activities.
Okay.
So that's kind of one way, and I'm kind of trying to answer my own question. But
does it work though? Have you used it?
I have not used it. I know people who have, and
Okay.
for those that have used it, it has worked for them specifically. I know for myself, I will eventually cheat, and will start checking things that I haven't done to level my character, because I will be too invested in that character. I'm afraid that reality, that virtual reality, or that world or that character will eventually overshadow what I need to do in real life. And so that's why I haven't used it. It may work temporarily for me, maybe like to get me out of a rut, but I don't see it working long term.
I think that most games, and actually most things in life, are all temporary like that. At the end of the day, Pokemon, like let's say that you caught all 149 Pokemon or whatever, I mean, they could say, well, wait, we just discovered 150 more.
Move the goalposts.
Right? You can totally move the goalposts, right?
Well, I mean, that's why they have like 900 Pokemon.
I know,
now.
but eventually it loses its effect.
Yeah.
Eventually, people just don't care anymore. Yeah, I already got my 150, I'm done.
Yeah.
So it is all temporary. But for as long as that myth, that world, that story, that discovery can take place, you're hooked. And it infuses it with an intrinsic motivation. Oddly enough, it's just a game, so it's a fictional world, but your motivation is not extrinsic. Like, your motivation for doing your chores is because you want a clean house.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just, or it's just dirty. Other people are complaining about it. You just can't get around your room. It smells bad, and so you're fixing it because of other external motivations, versus maybe a more intrinsic motivation. Like, if you're hungry, you eat.
Yeah.
Because that's intrinsic to what you're trying to do. You're not like doing it to get money or something else like that, unless you're winning a eating competition. I don't know. But I think that with like Pokemon, like the narrative, the story, the world, and maybe you don't understand because you didn't like grow up with it or whatever, and just like the simple goal of like trying to uncover every Pokemon in your Pokedex, like it creates the illusion of an intrinsic motivation almost, where it's like, I just have to catch them all, like, and you're not even brainwashed in the sense that like I am hypnotized and I must catch them all. It is something that you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to do it, and the moment you discover that you could catch this rare Pokemon in this area, like, you want to go there and try to catch it. So they've been able, through the narrative, through the world, to create, and through the story and stuff, to create a temporary artificial intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
I'm just throwing that out there as
Intrinsic
a possibility.
motivation. Oh, so it's like something that's, should I say, even quantized to a point where there's 150 or 100, whatever.
Yeah, you know how many there are on your
Yeah.
Pokedex, and you can fill out.
And
your
you can
goal is to
check.
catch them all and see them all.
Because I know for myself, whenever I hit a rut, it's because my goal is too high, and I know that like it would take me a long time to reach it.
Yeah.
And I think you even probably know this, kind of as a CS guy, like the best way to code is to break it down into manageable sections and tackle those areas.
Yeah, bit by bit, and
by bit,
iterate.
yeah.
This is another level on which to answer that question about could you gamify life?
Yeah.
And something that with the real significance and purpose. I think one of the hard things. I think that the reality is that life is already quote unquote gamified, in the sense that God has created us with those reward centers of pleasure and pain, and that dopamine and serotonin and all those other brain chemicals, and that certain actions make us feel great, and certain ones make us feel pain. And what happens is that we end up getting rewarded, quote unquote, for things that actually are not good or productive, and we get stuck because of that in a rut. And so, like, going home watching Netflix or whatever, or just like just kind of
Chilling.
binging or whatever, and it feels good because it's hitting on some of those pleasure centers and makes it so we don't have to do any work. But it's a misaligned incentive. So we get into the habit of doing that because we feel pain elsewhere, and so we just go for the quick pleasure, and we kind of medicate our pain that way, and then we get stuck and addicted. And this can apply to games. This can apply to porn. This can apply to Netflix. This can apply to work even. And that's so often why our game RPG is completely thrown off, is because we're getting rewarded for things that have no correlation to reality anymore. Like, it feels good to just kind of binge and watch Netflix, but it has no correlation to any real growth as a human being,
Right.
productivity, or anything else like that, right? And so that can throw us off in our quote-unquote game RPG. And then we lose sight of also I think, again, I go back, as we did in the previous episode or part, the narrative is huge. Like, the story, the IP, the world, like being immersed in this different world, whether it's the Harry Potter world or the Pokemon world or something else, or anytime you're reading a book or watching a movie, you're getting immersed in this different world. That's so powerful because that's what creates significance, or the illusion of significance. Now, if you're a really fantastic writer like C.S. Lewis or something, the world you create, you'd intentionally try to tie its significance to Jesus,
Right.
something like that. But other fantastic writers can create just these amazing worlds, and you can get absorbed in them. And sometimes those worlds will tell you a different narrative and cause you to behave in different ways. And so, likewise with like real life, like the life RPG, we can go through the motions of doing chores. Or we can even go to work and do the grind. We can even like make tons of money, or we can even grow in our craft. But when you lose that narrative, when you lose the significance of why you even care about growing in your craft, or why clean house even matters, then everything starts to fall apart, basically. Your purpose is gone, your sense of purpose is gone. All your activities seem meaningless, and you can still do them because of other reasons, like other extrinsic motivations. But all the intrinsic caring about stuff is gone. And life RPG doesn't matter anymore. It's like picking up an old game that you already like
I
I already beat that game, or I can't beat it. I just give up. I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that life is so complex and so hard, and things just happen to us that the life RPG narrative gets thrown off a lot. Like maybe when we're kids, we think that we have it figured out, right? We have this really neat little Pokemon world on our Game Boys that we can play, and like, oh, I got a bicycle now. I can get Pokemon twice as fast because I can travel way faster. It's so good. Right. And that's how we feel as we grow in life until we discover that, oh man, American politics, geopolitical situations, heartbreak, breakups, broken relationships, not getting the job that you wanted, not failing to get into the school that you wanted or the degree that you wanted, not having enough money, like the weight of all these things that don't factor into life RPG light.
Yeah.
With all the pain of their life, they could now empathize with these characters in the story and just like cry or laugh and then have an amazing resolution, right? That's the same with like TV episodes. Like you get a resolution, it feels so good to have that closure, that denouement after the conflict. Because like life is not that way. Life is so open-ended. So it's so rare to finally get that slight denouement or that slight closure that we've been longing for some conflict or complication that happened 10 years ago or whatever,
Yeah.
Or to have that moment of insight where it's like, oh, that just made sense out of the past 5 years of my life, like, and we long for those, but they're so rare. And so we get the pleasure of, oh, I just caught a Pidgeotto or whatever like that. Or we long for the pleasure of, I just watched this episode of whatever and I enjoyed it, because it happened so soon and so quickly and it gives us that reward.
Yeah.
And it can be a powerful thing, but a powerful thing that can be good because it could call us to living a holy life. It could inspire us, right, to be courageous and to do what's right, even in the face of great adversity. Or it could also be bad in the sense that we could live vicariously through those characters and just feel like, oh, I'm pretty content just to like watch heroic movies and,
but never live one.
But never live one. Yeah. Like we could just live vicariously through those characters and never actually grow as a human being. Yeah. And so it's powerful, but it can go either way. So that's my thought about life RPG and some of the reasons why it's so difficult for life to be fun in that sense. Although maybe I'm the wrong person to talk to. There's people on the internet who probably claim life is amazingly fun, and
I think it's fun.
They never have a bad day.
I part of the reason why I don't really like play games anymore. Well, one is because my parents never allowed me to when I was growing up. But two, like I think life is fun. In a game you have certain game mechanics. You have certain rules. And I think in life, like, yes, there are certain rules, but it's very complex. And I would say it's so complex that it almost feels like there are no rules sometimes. Like you can almost make up the rules as you go. Sometimes. And it's cool because like you see certain situations. Like, why do we love stories of like underdogs becoming like heroes or like, person who's like in poverty like finally making it? It's like it's because it's like in a sense, it almost follows the narrative. Yep. Like, you start out with no Pokemon. Yep. You start out at the bottom, and then it's like, hey, now we're here, kind of thing.
You're the Pokemon League champion.
Yeah. I did want to point out something that you mentioned earlier, which is you can ride a bicycle in the Pokemon world when on the Game Boy. And I just realized that as you're saying that, you also mentioned that the kids near your house were riding bikes to catch Pokemon faster. Right.
That is exactly what they were doing.
That was an exact
Everything
translation.
Makes sense.
No.
Because so there's one element of the game where you get these eggs, and basically by walking a certain number of kilometers, you hatch the egg by putting it in an incubator. Now, the way that they did I think that the way they did the math is that if you're driving, it doesn't count towards your step count. Like, they can detect that, and it's going to not be as... Like, if you drive, 10 kilometers, it doesn't mean that your egg has incubated 10 kilometers worth. So walking does it, and biking does it. Oh. But driving doesn't. I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I've noticed from, me trying to hatch the eggs. Uh-huh. And I'm like, oh, dude...
Oh, you tried driving?
Well, I have the app open on the side, and I'm just driving, and I check. It's like I drove more than 10 kilometers, and yet my egg hasn't hatched. But if you walk, it detects it. I mean, it still detects it, but not at the rate of your driving, basically. And if you bike, it detects it, I think. So biking actually, like the game itself is designed to incentivize walking and biking, which is physical activity,
Right.
Because of the way that
It was reflected in the
to hatch your
game.
eggs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so smart. And yeah, it's just hilarious. Like now, kids are biking around the neighborhood trying to catch Pokemon because the gyms are far enough away that if you want to claim multiple gyms, you kind of need to be on a bike to be able to like catch as many as you can. And
on
then,
the same day.
Yeah. Otherwise, people are going to come and take over the gym before you have a chance to.
Oh,
you have a chance to get as many as you can. And so anyway, they designed the game mechanics very well to incentivize walking and biking.
And biking, yeah.
Yeah, and it's hilarious.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's hilarious.
It has to do. I think it has to do with speed, then, right?
It must be, yeah. If you're above like 20 miles an hour, then it may no longer.
Then it just like it knows that you're in the car.
Yeah.
I would expect people on hoverboards.
I haven't seen that either.
Or skateboards too. I haven't seen
Maybe
that.
skateboard. I don't know.
Or longboard.
I mean, it just came out, so.
That's true. Yeah. Also, another friend suggested that I live stream it because I have a bunch of co-pros.
Oh.
So I could like live stream it.
Just walk around Green Lake and see how many people are playing Pokemon.
But then again, I haven't downloaded the app. Yeah, I think this question is gonna probably be like something that's gonna be answered over time. I don't think there's like one right answer in terms of like why can't life be gamified or like why can't we be motivated to like do the things we ought to do kind of thing. But hopefully that gives you some idea, some thoughts to chew on, and I'm definitely gonna be thinking about it more because I know from a fact that there's still things that I want to accomplish, and there's a lot of things I have to do.
I know.
To get there. So
yeah, I feel the same way, especially with Theotech and everything. And
yeah,
sometimes it just feels like I'm not working as hard as I should be.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's I think very humbling and also true is that so much of life is out of your control, and hence so much of life is grace. It's like God's gift.
Yeah.
It's like even when you make it, if you're honest and you look back, like you have to say, like, you know what, this is God's grace. Like I may have worked hard, whatever, but at the end of the day, there's just so many things that were not of me that were necessary to make it possible. And even though with like Theotech, like the opportunities that we get and Spiffio or the speaking engagements or whatever, it's just like those are not things I earned. I don't deserve them. They're just kind of given. I think that basically when you realize that the positive way that they can make you feel is grateful.
Yeah.
Right. And being grateful changes. It can change. Like you can still have the intensity of like an athlete trying to win a competition, but it also changes it so that the burdensomeness and the pressure and the sense of like it's make it or break it and it's all on me. That's kind of lifted because you know that your life is really in somebody else's hands. That the story of your life is really being written out by God. It's a big like I would love to live in that sweet spot of having the burden of life lifted and feeling kind of relief with the kind of pleasure that you get from being so focused and intensely focused on your goals that you can just like go and achieve them. So then you get the best of kind of both worlds, right? You don't have any of the pressure and the burden, but you have all the freedom and the joy and the productivity. In some ways, I believe that's what God's kingdom is going to be like when it talks about the freedom of the children of God, the glory of the freedom of the children of God. It's like we're going to be so free to pursue all those dreams and passions that God's given us in a holy way without any of the negative side effects and the burdensomeness that it'll just be so satisfying. I think that's what I hope for in the kingdom.
Yeah. I'm still gonna create stuff, so you know where I'm gonna be at.